everybody, and welcome back to Music Impossible. My name is Professor Jim. So glad you could join us for lesson number 2. Now, like our first lesson, today's lesson might be a little bit of a review for some of you, and you might be asking, why is this advanced playlist including things I already know? Music theory, the discipline of study, is a lot like math, in that when you're studying quadratic equations in Algebra 2, you're still using subtraction and addition and division, multiplication. Everything's a building block in math. It's the same way with music theory. And so we want to make sure we have laid a great foundation for you in these first handful of lessons. And trust me, along the way, you're going to start picking up on little tidbits that you didn't know, even in the review of some of these basics. And in traditional voice leading and harmony, some of the terminology may even be different than what you're used to. And so all of this is going to kind of fall into place. So stick with it. Hang in there. We got some good things coming. Today, we're going to just look at scales. And what is a scale and what does it mean? And then every scale degree, every note in a scale has a specific name depending on what key it's in. So if we look here at our Sibelius file, let's just build a real quick C major scale. There's a C major scale, starts on C, C being the tonic note, which we learned in the prior lesson. The tonic is that home note, and everything goes from there. Now, in a scale, no matter what key it's in, every single letter of the musical alphabet must be represented in some way or another. Sharped, flatted, natural, whatever, sometimes even double sharped or double flatted if you're doing really kind of crazy keys. The point is that every single letter has to be represented. So a scale comes from Latin for scala, which means steps or ladder, and it is a series of consecutive notes, one after the other, starting on a tonic note, and then again repeating at the end of the scale the next tonic note up or down, depending on which way you're going with your scale. This is an ascending C major scale. We see C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Every letter of the musical alphabet is represented. Now, one thing to note on scales is we refer to each note in the scale as a scale degree. So if we take a look at our scale degree here, and our first scale degree is just labeled 1, so it's scale degree 1. The second note in the scale is scale degree 2, and then scale degree 3. You get the idea. And then finally we get to the 7th unique note, and then it repeats again with the first scale degree just an octave higher. Okay, now if we go here and we look at each scale degree, each particular scale degree has its own unique name. Now, we learned in the last lesson that the first note of any scale is called the tonic. And so if we were in the key of G, G would be the tonic, that home note, that first note of any scale. In the key of C, the tonic is C. The second note is called the supertonic. So in this case, it's a D. We go back again to the key of G. The second note would be A. That would be the supertonic in the key of A. The third note is called the mediant. The fourth note is called the subdominant, dominant. The fifth note is called the dominant. So those are our first 5 notes. Again, D is not always the supertonic. It's only the supertonic in the key of C because it's the second note in the C major scale. If we were in a G major scale, then the tonic would be G, supertonic A, B is the mediant, C would be the subdominant, and D would be the dominant in that case. All right, the 6th scale degree, we call that the submediant. The submediant, that's the 6th scale degree. And then finally, the 7th scale degree is called the leading tone. Leading, doesn't let me do that. Leading tone, should be 2 separate words. Wouldn't let me put a space there. Leading tone. So there we go. Those are our 7 scale degrees, and each of them has their own name. We're going to refer back to these several times throughout the course of study. Particularly, you're going to hear words like dominant and tonic an awful lot. Leading tone comes up when we start talking about tritones and the resolution of tritones and so forth. More on that to come. And the last little note here is just to start understanding that we have different intervals. An interval is a distance between 2 notes. And the interval we're going to talk about today, very simply, is called the octave. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard about octaves and what octaves are. And very simply, an octave is just if we have one note let's say a middle C, an octave above that would be the very next C up. 2 octaves above middle C would be that very, very high note. And we could keep going. We could keep going octaves up. We could go octaves down. And so when notes are 8 apart, 8 scale tones apart, those would be considered octaves, all considered the tonic, just different tones of the same letter name. All right, that's our lesson for the day. Tune back in next time, just to give you a little heads up. The next lesson, we start diving into major scales and what whole steps and half steps are. And we start to learn the formula of how to create a major scale. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. We'll see you next time.